Hey everyone. So today I interviewed with Tom Schroeder from Waldmann Brewery. We dove into a lot of the history of the brewery, which if you're a history buff, this will be a great episode for you. We also got into their signature beers and their brewing process. I thought it was a fascinating discussion, and I think you guys will really enjoy it. So without further ado, let's get into the interview. So Tom, thank you for joining us today with Midwest Microbrew. I'd love to learn a little bit more about your brewery. Um, So obviously, you played a big part in making Waldman what it is today, and I'd love to get into kind of your story there. When I was researching, I saw that you helped to like restore Waldman's, and it's actually got a lot of history to it. Would you be able to tell me a little bit about what's going on with that and how you got started?
Yeah, the Waldman's history is probably the greatest asset on our balance sheet, and it's really
Mhm.
the reason for the brewery, the reason for Waldman. And my background was as an attorney practicing in the area of nonprofits, but also doing a very substantial amount of pro bono preservation law. I've had a number of clients over the years in and around the Twin Cities and the Midwest generally, trying to preserve historic structures and sites that were under threat, everything from Civil War battlefields, and yes, we do have some in the Midwest, to individual structures and even houses. This particular building captured my imagination way back in, gosh, 1989, 1990, when I first moved into this neighborhood in St. Paul. And it was just a completely unique building, solid limestone. Nobody had done an appropriate history of the structure. It was only five or six doors down from the house that my wife and I later restored. And when it came up for potential demolition by the city in 2008, I didn't have a client this time. I decided to take on the project myself, partly because it was our neighborhood, partly because I was just intrigued by the mystery of the building, and largely on a whim. I mean, I had no idea that it had been what it ultimately turned out to be, an original pre-Civil War German lager saloon. That knowledge came much later.
Hmm. Wow, that's an incredible story. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean it. I remember seeing the building 20 years earlier and saying, if I ever got my hands on that, that could really change my life, and it did.
Wow, absolutely. Yeah, that's pretty incredible how you got it started there, and obviously it's been working out for you. How would you describe your brewery in one sentence to someone who hasn't been there before?
We're a German lager brewery that respects our history and the history of the community we operate in. We welcome all, regardless of their interest in history or architecture or even beer. I mean, it's a community place, and we do focus on traditional German lagers. We're not an IPA or an ale house, although we do traditional German ales as well, alt beers in particular,
Hmm.
and Hefeweizens and Weiss beers. But for the most part, we stay in a lane of beers that are appropriate to the time period of the building and creating not just an experience around beer, but a full immersion in mid 19th century architecture, food, yes, beer, but the experience, even the lighting at Waldman is unique. I mean, we've got the largest collection of mid 19th century whale oil lamps in the country, I'm sure,
Wow.
because I've been collecting them for 20 plus years. um, and not to sound overly serious about it, we have a ton of fun. Our Oktoberfest is our biggest event of the year, and I like to say we're bringing back the original Oktoberfest became before they became drunk fests. So we have
Yeah.
traditional bands. We play both kinds of music, both German and Polish polka.
Hmm.
And it's just a lot of fun. The community gets involved every year, and it's just a great way to celebrate our heritage and let ourselves get silly at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, that's pretty cool. I mean, Oktoberfest has been around for a while, but I guess you guys have a unique way of celebrating it with a lot more tradition and that's awesome. So kind of getting into that immersion in the historical aspect of the building. Can you walk me through what the first time visitor experience is when they walk through?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, the first time visitor who's not really familiar with the scale or styling of pre-Civil War saloons
Hmm.
might think they're just walking up to a little stone house, and many do. Many people will ask me, when did you convert this house into a brewery? And I'm like, guess what? That's what it was built to be. It was built to be actually not a brewery, but a lager saloon.
Hmm.
And it was built by carpenter and stonemason craftsmen who had an intuitive understanding of human scaled spaces. So we're unique as a restoration project because we're not some commercial warehouse that somebody decided to convert to a brewery. We actually were originally what we are today,
Hmm.
a community establishment with human scaled spaces where people can sit around tables with, uh, relatively dim light, look through wavy glass hand blown windows over candlelight, and be served the beers that they would have drank in the mid 19th century, which, by the way, turn out to be among the most popular beers worldwide today. And I'm talking about the German lager style.
Yeah.
We were doing Pilsners before anyone else in St. Paul or in the Twin Cities generally were even interested in doing German lagers when everybody was stuck on IPAs, as many still are. So, so they'll experience that too. Women in particular, and not to stereotype, but we get a lot of comments by people that don't think they're beer drinkers because their palates have been bombed by too much bittering,
Yeah.
by overhopped beers, and they'll walk in and they'll be like, "Wow, this is I haven't had a beer like this anywhere else." And what we're serving them are, of course, the beers that were worldwide the most prominent styles until the late 1980s.
Yeah.
But people just aren't familiar with them any longer. A traditional Dunkel, a traditional Pilsner,
Yeah.
a mildly hopped alt beer or ale, and Weiss beers are just luscious with those
Yeah.
banana clove flavors, and those aren't obviously totally unique in the industry, but we also don't give them silly names. I'm not calling them the one-eared side hopping Wonder One, or they're we call them a Dunkel. We
Hmm.
call them Weiss beers. Sometimes we may say Waldmann's Pilsner. That is our flagship, but we're never going to give it a silly name. We dignify our beers by their styles.
Oh, that's great to hear. Yeah, I mean, there's a reason why those traditional style drinks were so popular for so long, right? And
Oh
that's
God, yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah, and that history, and by the way, those styles are coming back in popularity. I mean, if you look at Bierstaub Lagerstube in Denver, and I mean, there are other precedents nationwide where German Pilsners are coming back. And I think the other unique thing that's happened is brewers themselves have grown tired of an overemphasis on particular IPA styles and on fill and pallets for distribution.
mhm.
And so there's a sort of a reappreciation of these older, more nuanced styles, which are more vulnerable, much more difficult to brew, particularly if they're doing decoction style brewing like we do 100%.
Hmm.
And so, I get a lot of interest from brewers coming in and talking to my head brewer about how we do and what we do with our specialized equipment and approaches, because it's really not the same in most of their breweries.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. That's pretty cool. Thank you for telling me that. Um, so getting into a little bit more about the setup that you have there. Are there any kind of like areas that people specifically are drawn to within the building or that they love to photograph? Um, what would you say is your most photographed area?
Oh, man, probably standing in front of the building itself,
Hmm.
because if you've seen any of the photos on our website or online, it really is a beautiful little gem of a building.
Yeah.
And its limestone construction makes it fairly unique, a real standout.
Yeah.
Um, it might be in our beer garden because, particularly in the summertime, we have a fairly elaborate array of flowers and other decorations and strung lighting across the beer garden. I, I I've been to a lot of German beer gardens, and I'm
Mhm.
humble enough to admit that we do not have the finest beer gardens of what I've seen in Germany. But we're close. And in the Twin Cities, I think we have one of the most beautiful beer gardens around. And it is also the Twin Cities' oldest beer garden, by the
Yeah.
way, because it was used as such in the mid 1850s and 60s. So they might snap a few shots there. around this season, we have a 28-foot Christmas tree in our beer garden.
Oh, really?
And one of our biggest events of the year is St. Nicholas Day, our tree lighting ceremony. So that's on December 5th. And the Krampus come out, if you're familiar with the Alpine monsters of German and Austrian lore.
Uh-huh.
So a lot of photography with Krampus and the gorgeous Christmas tree in the wintertime. Or
Yeah.
it might just be sitting around the table with family and friends with the unique lighting and the historic surrounds. It really depends on people's interests.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, no, I can kind of picture some of the things that you're talking about. I know that, and listeners of the show will like to know this too. On your website, you actually have a like a virtual tour that you can take and kind of go through the
Yep.
building itself and just get a little bit of a picture before you actually enter. So I think that's nice, and it sounds like you've got some great things going on there for ambiance.
Yeah.
So kind of moving into my next realm of questions here. Just family friendliness. How family friendly is your space there? And then do you have accommodations for different age groups?
Yeah, absolutely. We love families and we get a lot of them, particularly in the summertime on the beer garden. That's really an easy place for young families in particular to bring their kids. I will say there are a lot of parents who enjoy beers on our beer garden tables, and their kids are scooping up gravel or playing in the grass or doing other
Mhm.
things within sight and safely. But it allows for different activities for different interests, including the
Yeah.
kids' interests, without setting them down again in a large industrial style beer hall,
Hmm.
which can be fairly loud, cacophonous, and you can try to make it kid friendly. But what kids ultimately want are open spaces, green spaces, interesting
Hmm.
spaces frankly, with dirt and gravel
Yeah.
sometimes. We have to be careful of that because, if you get a broken glass on the beer garden, you got to really make sure it's safe for those kids
Hmm.
and there are no glass shards. So we do have to take care with that. Oktoberfest in particular, we have our Sundays at our 2 weekend long Oktoberfests are explicitly designed for families with puppet shows, with jugglers, with music specially geared towards kids and dancing with kids. And so that's really sweet to see too.
Yeah.
Uh, Inside, it is a historic environment.
Hmm.
So it's not totally easy to make a building such as ours that has, hardwood floors
Hmm.
and wood tables and chairs, uh, ultimately conducive to kids. I will say though that we have two wood burning stoves, and I've never had a kid burn their hands on them.
Well, that's good.
I think I think philosophically, it's healthy for kids to be in environments as well where they can be treated as adults in a
Hmm.
sense and be respected of their interests. And I think they will find Waldman's atmosphere every bit as fascinating as some of their parents might, maybe for different reasons.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, good answer. Um, And so kind of getting into more of the community stuff. I know that you've touched on this. What regular events do you have that kind of bring the community together? I know you mentioned Oktoberfest and your Christmas festival as well, but I would love to hear more about those or other ones too if you
Yeah,
have.
the mainstays I've mentioned are our St. Nicholas Day tree lighting
Mhm.
ceremony. New Year's Eve, we have a 5 p.m. countdown because it's a countdown Munich time.
Oh yeah.
And we serve a free bowl of Mitternacht soup for everybody in attendance that night that I personally warm over a wood fire in the beer garden, ladle out to people just as a really direct and personal thank you to all of our supporters throughout the year. March 12th is our Bierstallen this year. Bierstallen is German for beer poking.
Hmm.
If you're aware of that tradition, I grew out of German country pubs where the bartender might be asked at the same time as he was arranging the coal in the fireplace to poke his iron poker in somebody's beer or hot wine to warm it up a little bit on a cold night. And we do that on the beer garden with an authentic German blacksmith forge that we roll out there for the event.
Wow.
Heat up iron to 900 degrees and douse them in people's Bach beer. So that's a fun event. And
Yeah.
produces all sorts of wonderful color, caramelized flavors, almost like drinking a marshmallow.
Yeah.
Um, so that's in mid-March, March 12th this year. Then rolling forward, Decoration Day is turned into a relatively recent and new event for us, but we
Hmm.
like to celebrate Memorial Day weekend with an homage to the 19th century version of Memorial Day, which was Decoration Day,
Hmm.
with reenactors, Civil War reenactors. Little known fact, but many Civil War soldiers were recruited at saloons.
Hmm.
And so we have a reenactment of the conversion of civilians to soldiers, along with Century Brass, who play 19th century fife and drum music on the beer garden. So that's kind of a fun one to go to.
Yeah.
If you don't want to trudge through cemeteries, you can come out and honor our military and the history of our military with a beer on our beer garden. Um, then you kind of roll forward to Oktoberfest, and I've
Yeah.
already described a little bit of that, but that's 6 days, 2 full weekends of over 28 to 30 different groups performing
Hmm.
all day long from noon to 10 at night. And as I alluded to earlier, with only a couple of exceptions, all of that music is going to be traditional German Oktoberfest polka music or other style appropriate music for a traditional Oktoberfest. I say with a couple of exceptions because even in Munich, the number one song is going to be probably by John Denver or uh, it's going to be a Neil Diamond breakout song at the very end or something fun that the bands will play just as a crowd pleaser.
Hmm.
And we're not above that either. Um, and then just throughout the year, a lot of quirky, smaller events. I'm scheduling an art opening coming up here in a couple of weeks of an artist who's painted the confluence of the Minnesota and the Mississippi River, and he's going to talk about his vision in producing that astounding piece. We've got a book signing and presentation later on, a history book on early settlement in St. Paul. We collaborate with the Minnesota Historical Society and other nonprofits, Rethos in particular, whose focus is on historic preservation. They have a bi-monthly gathering up in our Buffalo room for the interest group of preservationists, and that's a very strong personal commitment of my own as well. Um, we actually even formed a political PAC
Oh yeah.
to help influence our local politicians on the issues of preservation in St. Paul in particular, but also statewide. So we've had political presentations and even a city council forum on our beer garden. So it's for all stripes and flavors.
Yeah. Wow. Oh, that's pretty cool. Thank you for telling me all that. So kind of getting into some practical information. So if someone's visiting from out of town, what should they know beforehand? Whether there's like parking or reservations, just that kind of stuff that they should know.
Oh, I'd suggest that they review our website regarding parking. They should look at our parking tab.
Hmm.
You take your Civil War saloons where they were originally built.
Yep.
You know, we can't move them to suburbia and surround them by huge swaths of parking lots. And I'm actually really pleased that we didn't tear up the neighborhood
Hmm.
to produce off-street parking. I think too much of that has already happened in the Twin Cities, and we were very intentional in advertising to people where the permitted parking is, and also not in tearing down structures around us to create more parking. I know that sounds against my own economic interests, but I live in this community too, and I care about it.
Yeah.
So I would just caution out of towners that aren't familiar with St. Paul's quirky parking rules to visit our website and beef up on them a little bit. Other than that, come hungry and thirsty. We're also a full restaurant. We're not just a brewery.
Hmm.
We have a fairly extensive menu of uh, German American, I would say, comfort food.
Hmm.
Uh, we have no TV screens, so don't come if you're expecting to watch a Vikings game out of the corner of your eye,
Well, that would
because
kind of
you're
ruin the
gonna.
tradition of it.
Yeah, well, and I just philosophically, we joke. Waldman has its own internet in a way because people connect to one another. They don't need to connect online when you're at Waldmann. So
Hmm.
you're not going to see a lot of people sitting around silently looking at their phones and not talking to one another. There's something about the environment that really encourages conversations. Partly because our beer garden tables each seat 12. So you're going to
Wow.
have a lot of communal opportunities.
Hmm.
You can request a private table inside, but if you're sitting on the beer garden, a lot of times you're going to be sat with someone else and wonderful conversations and connections come out of that.
Yeah.
So I would say expect to meet friends, expect
Yeah.
to make new friends as well.
Oh, awesome. All right. So kind of getting into a little bit. Oh, actually, hold on. Let me ask, because you mentioned the restaurant. What would you say is your most popular dish that you serve there?
Our giant pretzels.
Giant pretzels?
Yeah, bar none, our number one seller, at least in terms of item sales, is our giant pretzels. So I'll use the word import. We import them from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, because Milwaukee pretzels, I think, are the best pretzels in the country. We've sourced a lot of pretzels from a lot of other places. They actually use a malt derived batter for their bread dough. So it is such a perfect pairing with our Pilsner and our other lagers generally.
Yeah.
Um, and it comes with, you can get a fully loaded pretzel with a veritable charcuterie board supporting it, or just our own in-house made mustards, including our berry mustard, which
Hmm.
is fabulous. Uh, our walleye is a great entree, Minnesota walleye. We have our own proprietary verse. I'm sure that will shock you. We serve versed and four different kinds as well, including an all vegan versed, which is a perfect protein bar. It's really a nutritious verst and
Wow.
surprisingly tasty for people like me that aren't vegan.
Yeah.
Um,
It's always a
our fruit
plus.
strudel is a great way to end a meal, and a new twist on a fruit strudel. We've got a Waldenbrock, which is our chocolate walnut strudel, which is a really luscious dessert.
Hmm.
And then also a quirky wine list. So we did distribute beer for our first 4 years. I dropped our distribution license. In Minnesota, you can't distribute beer and have an on site liquor license. We
Hmm.
wanted to offer wine as an alternative to our patrons.
Hmm.
So we now have a fairly quirky and extensive European folk, and won't surprise you, Central European German wine list as well to offer those of our guests that would frankly just prefer to have a good glass of wine instead of a beer. We're not
Wow.
offended by that.
Yeah, absolutely. Something for everyone.
Yeah,
So kind of walk me through your core lineup of beer here. You said that your flagship style is Waldmann's Pilsner, is that correct?
correct.
Okay.
Yep.
So what other styles do you have available, and what do you think makes them so popular?
Well, so the Pilsner is the flagship, and that is our flagship for a variety of reasons.
Hmm.
Most importantly, because that was the beer that popularized lagers in the United States. It's the reason Waldmann came into existence to begin with. Waldmann and the 29 other lager saloons that operated in St. Paul during the Civil War. Beyond that, our Dunkel, which is really a reflection of the lager's heritage with dark malted beers. But ours is a surprisingly, uh, I would say, malty and light in taste beer for a Dunkel. You're not going to get a lot of that astringent roast flavor out of it because we actually stain our Dunkel with Carafa 3 malts rather than basing it on dark roasted grain malts. Produces a really luscious light flavor for a dark beer. Um, but if you want that full roasted flavor, we frequently will have a Baltic Porter on tap,
Hmm.
or right now a Tamavi, which is a dark Czech lager, just full roasted, full wonderful uh, roast and dark malt flavor. Um, Summertime, actually, we've taken to full year season our Weiss beer, our Hefeweizen is now full year. That was so popular in the summertime. Our brewer this year didn't see a reason to end it in the winter season.
Yeah.
All of this beer, by the way, is served in style appropriate glassware, so you'll get a different kind of a glass for our Weiss beers than you will for our lagers.
Oh,
and a different still for our higher gravity beers, which will be served in more appropriate 10-ounce tulip glassware.
hmm.
Um, what else? Vienna lagers, Czech pills. We've done 3 or 4 different historical pills in the past couple of years. I revived the history of a particular brewer in town who I believe, through my research, introduced adjunct brewing
Hmm.
to Minnesota, initially with your brewery in the 1860s. And so we did a special recipe in homage to Joseph Slavey. Then we did a corn adjunct and a rice adjunct because he experimented with both Slavey's 86 and a Slavey's 90. So the fun thing about having a brew pub as opposed to a commercial distribution brewery
Yeah.
is we're able to change up our styles with
Mhm.
every batch. We don't need to fill consistent pallets of identical beer on trucks every week, every month, every year. And so we'll do probably anywhere from 25 to 35 different styles of beer a year,
Wow.
and frequent variations even within specific beer styles. And we're very upfront about that.
Hmm.
Hey, we're experimenting this month, and we actually are, with a Rausch Helles, adding a titch of beechwood smoke flavoring to our Helles beer. So that's the fun of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you get a little bit more freedom that way.
Yeah.
That's always a nice quality to have. So are there any seasonal or limited releases that people should be watching out for coming up?
Yeah, our Doppelbock.
Yeah,
That's been
absolutely.
in the tank for several months now as it's drying out and clarifying. That's going to be released prior to our Bierstahlen Festival in March that I mentioned.
Hmm.
Um, we've got a next generation of Dunkel coming out in the next couple of weeks. That Rausch Helles I have alluded to is going to be released probably within the month.
Hmm.
All of these are being constantly tasted, and Matt, our head brewer, I should mention Matt Wilders by the name, fabulous head brewer, came to us from Insight Brewing, experience with 3 other breweries in the Twin Cities before then. But he is just knocking it out of the park with his full decoction brews and his recipe derivations, including his historic recipe development. And I just can't speak enough to his talent and his passion creating these German lagers. And he gets a lot of visits. We just had Dan Carey come up to us uh, from
New Glarus, right?
yeah, thank you, New Glarus.
Yeah.
A brain fart there for a second. And they spent the evening together going through the brewery. And Leopold Wunk from Alderbrau in Germany was out in late September and spent a couple of days with Leopold, kind of sharing brew philosophies and approaches, and hearing it straight from the horse's mouth from a Central Bavarian brewery is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Um, so I forgot what the question was, Henry, but
Oh,
we're
yeah.
having a ton of fun here and constantly releasing new styles.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's pretty cool that you mentioned Dan Carey. I actually just interviewed with him, I believe last month, and I mean he's got some awesome German styles as well.
Oh, he's an incredible brewer, obviously incredibly successful as well. He and his wife
Mhm.
have really built a fabulous brewery and really a broad community of supporters that's richly deserved.
Yeah, and he's a great guy too. He's a lot of fun to
Oh,
talk
yeah,
to.
really down to earth. I mean,
Absolutely.
yeah, yeah.
Oh, that's cool. So kind of getting into some of the insider scoop. What's something about your brewery that most visitors should know, but probably don't before they get there?
Um, so I wish it were better known because we're passionate about the fact that our side pour lucre taps are specifically designed for uh, tank beer tapping.
Hmm.
And so, as you would find in the Czech Republic and in parts of Germany, we've lined 4 of our bright tanks directly to the beer hall to be dispensed through those side pull ball valve Lucre taps.
Hmm.
And those are going to be naturally spunded beers as well. They're not being rekegged. They're not being, recarbonated. They're not being charged through the lines. And they're direct from brewery to your stein or your tankard. Um, the head on those beers is fabulous. True to the Czech style of dispensing those beers, we can do a full Milko if you want a foam pour. We can vary that head from a cream foam to
Hmm.
a hard foam to a soft, bubbly, aerated foam. And there's a whole art to that. And I love having conversations with guests about that. Now,
Yeah.
some aren't going to care as much. I love being corrected by the beer nerds when they occasionally see a server who's overly hurried and maybe not doing it exactly the way they've been trained to do it. And the beer nerds will know from the
Hmm.
websites and from their experience in Germany and in the Czech Republic how they should be poured. I'm totally into that. Um, Matt, our brewer's standard for pours are a really important aspect of who and what we are because he gets to control his beer from the recipe development all the way to the dispensing in the stein. And he's incredibly focused on all phases of that.
Yeah.
And so I would just want our guests to know that if you're into that, we will talk your head off about that and show you how a beer should be poured.
No,
It's
that,
it's it's an experience. It's not just sliding the beer down the counter at you.
yeah, absolutely. That's good to know. I'm glad you guys have that kind of passion with it. It's awesome. Um, so kind of getting into St. Paul craft beer scene. What makes St. Paul so special among beer drinkers?
Oh, just the variety.
Yeah.
And just as I'm talking your head off, Henry, on our history and our dedication to German style brews, and you've probably talked to other breweries here, but Bang will talk to you about organically derived wheats
Mhm.
and grains and barleys, and Bad Weather will talk with you about their particular style, kind of their fusion of English style ale brewing and IPA brewing,
Mhm.
and um, every brewery in St. Paul has its unique origin and focus, and frankly, personality. It reflects their owners. It also reflects their communities.
Mhm.
Most importantly, it reflects their values. And it's still a small enough industry in the Twin Cities where, uh, there's been very little infiltration by big beer. None of us have been gobbled up, blessedly,
Yeah.
by big beer yet. Some have gone out of business. That's to be expected. There was a winnowing out of the industry just through the maturation process of the industry.
Mhm.
But for the most part, you will find in St. Paul and in the Twin Cities generally, much the same or similar beer scene that you'll find in Portland, in Denver, and some of the other great beer capitals of the United States, but on a more personalized, more approachable scale.
Hmm. Cool. That's good to have around an area. Um,
Yeah.
we've been going for a while, so I wanted to get into some of the closing questions here. And it's honestly just because I've been having a lot of fun interviewing. But if someone could only try three things at your brewery, what would you recommend?
So I want them to try the Waldmann Pilsner
Hmm.
from our Lucre taps with a Milwaukee pretzel and the Amos charcuterie board on the side, and dip that pretzel into our blueberry blackberry mustard and move on from that if you have more stomach for it to our currywurst platter with our proprietary roasted curry in the batter of the wurst with that crisp, luscious shell on a wurst like it should have.
Hmm.
Not some Wisconsin brat, not to diss Wisconsin. I like a great Johnsonville on a summer day, but a
Hmm.
traditionally served German brat with a German American Pilsner is magical.
Yeah.
And end your evening making sure the servers brought you one of our 1850s two font whale oil candles in conversation with your partner or family or friend and just take in the vibe around you.
Hmm.
Notice the cannonball found in the building, which is our newel post.
Oh, really?
The 1860s original German Black Forest clock ticking behind you. And yes, it works. The
Wow.
cuckoo chiming from upstairs. The historic glassware and steins dating all the way back to the late 1600s on the walls. The original art. I mean, the scene goes on, but just to appreciate that full atmosphere,
Yeah.
that to me would be the ideal visit for a patron.
Yeah.
None of those things should be missed.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I mean, you paint an amazing picture there. I would love to make it up there sometime and try all that.
Gotta
Um,
have you, Henry.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
gotta have you.
Like I said, I got a brother that's kind of in that area, so next time I go up and visit him, I'm for sure
Yeah,
stopping by.
yeah,
But
yeah.
what's the best way for people to stay connected with what you're doing up there?
Go to our website, sign up for our newsletter.
Hmm.
Obviously, monitor our social media accounts. Um, and just reach out to me personally. My email is no secret. It's right on the website, tom@waldmanbrewery.com.
Hmm.
Would love to include them in the Waldman family.
Awesome. All right. And then do you have any final thoughts or messages for people who would be considering a visit?
I'd love it if they'd reach out to me. I love introducing people to Waldman. I try to be sensitive to how much time they have. I know sometimes I'll go overboard, but I love walking people through, even showing them the brewery if they're interested in the brewing process. It's good to know when people are coming in advance, particularly with larger groups, so I can really be part of the welcoming here. But if they want to come anonymously, just come and enjoy it. They don't have to reach out to me or anyone here first. We don't actually take reservations, so it's a very spontaneous environment.
Okay.
Uh, Weekends, you might wait a little bit for a table, but for the most part, you'll be able to just come on in or come on over to the beer garden and grab a chair, and our servers will find you.
Awesome. All right. Well, that sounds great. I thank you so much for taking the time to interview with me.
Well, thanks for your time, Henry. I appreciate the questions, and it's always great to share the Waldman story.
Yeah, absolutely. This has been fascinating. Alrighty, guys, that's going to do it for today. Be sure to check out some of our other exclusive interviews with the people from the best breweries in the Midwest. Bye now.